NFL Inside Blitz Week 15. We are not going to waste any time like most shows do. We're going to dive right into it. Ted Sobel from Sports USA Live. We've got two games that we're going to discuss quickly out of the gate. Start us off.
Detroit Lions at the New York Jets, first one. And the bottom line is that you're going to have a very difficult time doing this show. I know that. Just talking about Detroit over and over and over again and how great they are and how you've loved them ever since you were in the womb and all that kind of good stuff. And we're proud of you. We're really proud of you, Chris. Your team is on Sports USA finally.
Well, it's about darn time.
It's about time you guys got good enough, and we're thrilled. We're thrilled to have him. We got Jared Goff, who I dealt with since the first day in camp when he came to the Rams, and a really good guy, is easy to root for, has limitations, but certainly doing a nice job there in Detroit. And we just got late word in the last hour or so that Mike White is a no-go this weekend for the Jets. The doctors just basically said, hey, you got hammered way too hard in that last game. You're not going this week. So it's back to Zach Wilson. Did he learn his lesson? Whatever that means. He got benched. Wasn't really good on the podium in the news conference. Looked bad and probably looked even worse in the locker room. So let's see how the guys react to that. They can't worry about that kind of crap because bottom line is they need to win, and they need to win a lot to get to the playoffs after this. But should be an interesting game in New Jersey, the Jets and the Lions. And you got to love the fact that Detroit has just been scoring like crazy. They're averaging about 29 points a game this year, while the Jets defense is totally solid. So I love that matchup. What do you think, Ron?
Well, what I like about this is that you've got two teams that are obviously in the playoff hunt right now. With Seattle's loss yesterday, it clears the path for Detroit. Obviously, they have it's a long shot because both Washington and the New York Giants have that tie, which is really a bonus. But the Lions have won somewhere around 5 out of 6, and they're feeling really good right now. And they're not worried about that. They're just saying one game at a time, and we're going for it. And the Jets know they're right in the playoff hunt. They control their own destiny regarding that because you got Miami, New England right in the same division. Every game matters. There's the Chargers that are still there. So in my opinion, 2 out of the 4 teams that are going are the Chargers, the Jets, New England, or Miami. So the Jets are squarely in at 2 teams that we never thought we would be talking about at this time of the year in the playoff hunt. I have a question for you, Chris. Ted mentioned about the offensive explosion of Detroit, which we've seen all season long. What do your trailing 5 weeks tell us about Detroit's defensive numbers?
Well, I see that I got a frozen screen. Well, I don't know what we did to do. It's supposed to be cold in some of the cities this weekend, but it's really cold in Las Vegas today, obviously.
Well, I'm going to,
Chris, if you hear us, let us know.
Before Chris gets back.
There are some issues here, Ron, as of yesterday. I don't know about today yet because it's still early, but Aiden Hutchinson missed practice due to an illness, and Michael Brockers as well. So maybe some defensive issues, and Mike Hughes, the cornerback for Detroit. So they were all sick yesterday. Hopefully that's not the case as we get closer to game time.
Yeah, I have 2 thoughts here. Number one is the Jets are probably going to try to shorten the game by running the ball. And it's a good strategy against the Lions, who haven't defended the run well. That's why I had my question to Chris. What's been going on the last 5 weeks during this winning streak? Has it just been the offense, or has the defense stepped up at least a little bit? And the other thing is a temperature report. Jared Goff in the past hasn't played well in cold temperatures. I don't want to hold it against him completely, but the cold and the wind would be an interesting variable as well.
He's definitely an indoors guy. No doubt about it. He wasn't indoors at the Coliseum in L.A., but I guess you don't have to worry about it too much here.
No, sunny day today, as we know.
Yes. I like what the Jets are doing, but people are getting caught up in the Mike White thing, and yes, he's not playing this weekend, but they've lost 2 in a row. So it's not like it's an incredible experiment and it's going fantastic, right? Zach Wilson, the question is he mature enough to deal with this? I think this is a huge game for his career with the Jets. This is an opportunity. He didn't take the first snaps, from what I understand, for most of the week. So here he is. Okay, you got character on the line here. Just give him the ball, let him play. You know what he's capable of, but capable is only potential.
Yeah, and I think here he has an opportunity against a defense that's not one of the top defenses. There is pressure on him to deliver, but that's why I think they're going to try to shorten the game. They've got the rookie Wilson at wide out. That's really, really good. A lot of good wide receivers. They come into the league ready so often now. He's got a variety of running backs that he hopes to trust against the Detroit's defense. But what will be interesting to see is if his offensive line holds up in pass protection. The Lions have a decent, thanks to Hutchinson, 26 defensive sacks, puts them in the middle of the pack, but that's good for them compared to previous years. And the Jets still have problems protecting their quarterback. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, what about that Lions offense, though? It's been incredibly impressive. And hopefully as soon as Chris comes back, we'll play the interview I did with DeAndre Swift yesterday. And, I didn't realize some of his stats. The guy's got 23 touchdowns in 3 years. I mean, that is really impressive.
What he's had trouble doing is staying on the field.
Yeah, no doubt.
He got hurt earlier in the year, then they brought him back. So in the last 5 or 6 games, he's been carrying the ball roughly between 5 and 7 times a game. And he's been used more in the pass game. Yep. But I think that's a strategy that works. If you make him the workhorse running back, it's not going to work. Availability is a big thing. And Williams, his stablemate, has been carrying the ball 15 to 17 times. I think if I charted him out in this particular game before all the changes, I had Williams going 13 and a half carries would be my number for this particular game, and Swift for 6. But I have Swift catching between 3 and 4 balls in this game. So that combination that Detroit puts on the field, plus St. Brown at wideout, is really helping them diversify the offense. And Goff has been sharp this year.
Yeah, well, you got to protect him. He tends to have happy feet in the pocket when the protection is not quite perfect. So we'll see how that goes this week. What are your thoughts on the Jets pass rush against him?
Yeah, the Jets pass rush, they have 39 sacks on the year. So that's a great point that you bring up, because Detroit's offensive line is one of the best in the NFL at pass protection.
The Jets have happy feet in the pocket.
Hi there. You've got, I think you got feedback going on there, but Ted just asked about the Jets in ability to rush the passer, and they're really good in that area. And that's one of the battles, because the Lions have allowed under 20 sacks this year. They're one of the best at protecting their quarterback. So if that continues, Goff will have time in the pocket, and he'll have to make those throws, because the Jets are generally decent against the run, and they will force you to pass the ball.
But the one big question mark for the Jets this week is Quinnen Williams, who has an injury, a calf injury, and we don't know if he's able to go. Even will he be close to 100%? He got his 10th sack of the season last week on our air on Sports USA. I can actually hear it on the radio the way he sacked him. But that's a big loss if he's not close to 100%.
Welcome back, Chris. My question to you that you may not have heard was, Detroit's defense, what do you see? Has there been improvement over the last 5 weeks?
Let me find that actually. Detroit.
And let's also remember who they're facing as well.
Yeah, right? Believe it or not, the trailing 5 weeks, they're the number one gaining team in defense.
Okay. See, that was kind of my lead-in when Ted and I were talking, saying that that's the area that has really changed the fortunes, because the offense has been pretty consistent no matter who's been in the game all season long. What triggered their 5 out of 6 game winning streak?
They had a staffing changeover. They fired one guy, and they got healthier. I mean, it was
what you missed when you were gone, Chris, was that speaking of health, we mentioned Aiden Hutchinson has missed practice yesterday. He was sick, and a couple of other guys on D as well. So that better change for Sunday.
Yeah, we could use those guys considering he's probably the number 2 choice for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, that's a big miss. So what are your thoughts overall on this game without your heart pounding for your Lions?
Did we want to run these interviews?
Absolutely.
Who'd you want to go with first?
Well, you know what? That's up to you. I mentioned DeAndre Swift. Let's talk to him first. And the first question I asked him about, guys, was the yak, the yards after catch, and that's what he's been about. Go for it.
Hey, it's Ted in Los Angeles. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate the time. You're going to be on our pregame show.
All right, sounds good. Thank y'all for having me.
Absolutely. Love your game, sir. 23 TDs in 3 seasons, 6 receiving. DeAndre, you got to tell me, how much do you love catching the ball and creating those yak yards?
Man, it's something I like doing, most definitely. Something that Ben does a great job of. Every back in the room, being able to do everything when it comes to running the ball, pass protection, and be able to catch the ball at the backfield. We make that emphasis in our room that everybody could, do all those things, all the things necessary to be a complete back.
So how do you win 5 of 6 after a 1-6 start? That doesn't happen very often.
I feel like it's been a long time coming for this kind of change that we've been having here in Detroit. Coach Dan and staff did a great job of just implementing the culture when they came in last year. We've been going through a lot of adversity since last year, so kind of feel good to be on the other end of it. But got to take it week by week, man. We just keep progressing, keep getting better, keep playing complimentary football. That's all these days is feeding off each other and just playing good football. We want to play our best brand of football later on in the season, which I feel like we're very capable of doing.
That's great. How much of that recent success do you think is the kids simply learning on the job? You guys had such a rebuilt roster of youth going into this season.
Yep. It shows how the coaches do a good job week in and week out making sure we're ready. We prepare the right way throughout the week so it could be as easy as possible on Sundays. But the coaches, the older guys in these rooms do a great job making sure we are ready because we have, like you said, have a young roster ultimately. But I feel like we have a very mature roster. Everybody in here, business mentality when we walk through the doors each day and know how to come be pros.
So how big of a win was that on Sunday against Minnesota? You guys are really moving up the ladder in your division.
Yeah, most definitely. It was a big win, a much-needed win. We knew that going against them. We control our own destiny, and we understand that. So, like I said, we just taking it week by week, trying to progress and get better each week. We got a big opponent this week in the Jets, so got to do what we need to do to take care of business.
Well, with Lions running back DeAndre Swift, describe how Dan Campbell is building a winning culture there in Detroit.
Oh, man, just him, man, every coach from the defensive back to AGs to Shep, we have a competitive nature, and everybody that walks through these doors, like I said, since it started in camp, just competitive, all those types of things, getting better each week, progressing with things we messed up on. We make that emphasis next week so we don't make the same mistakes twice. And then the AG does a great job of making sure, like, offense and defense are prepared going into these games, and Flip does a great job of special teams. So, like I said, we've feeding off each other, man, playing complete football. It takes all 3 stages, and the coaches do a great job of just keeping us ready.
Outstanding. And DeAndre, I know Jared Goff since his first day in camp. We're in L.A., and I covered the Rams the entire time. I'm wondering, how has he become a leader on and off the field for you guys, and how big is that play-action stuff for his success there?
Oh, man, he's been a leader since he walked through the doors, man. It's happy for him, the success he's having this season. He's playing the most confident ball, I think he's told me, since for a little minute. But he's doing great things out there, commanding the huddle. Going to go as far as he takes it, so he does a great job.
And that play action, it seems to be really a big difference for him in the offense.
Mm-hmm. Like when we're able to run the ball well, it kind of opens up everything else for the receivers, for the play action, for the weapons we have outside and inside. Everything complements one another. So when we run the ball well, we can be able to play action and do other things that can help us win games and help us keep scoring.
Okay, a couple more things real quick. Biggest challenge against the Jets defense. It's the 6th overall D in the league against your outstanding offense.
It's going to be one of them hard-nosed, cold games, type of games you want to play in. We understand we're going up against a great defense, real sound. Don't really make so many mistakes. It's going to be a great matchup for us.
And last thing, according to one site, if the Lions lose, your playoff odds drop to 7%, and a win would be 34%. So realistically, how big is this game between a couple of desperate teams, both in the hunt for the playoffs?
It's real big. We understand that. Like I said, we control our own destiny, and I believe they do as well. So we going into it, we know what we're up against and know what we can do. Like I said, we had a great day of practice. Got to worry about finishing the week strong tomorrow, and then when they get here, we'll take care of that. But we know what we're up against. We know we control our own destiny. Got to focus in on Sunday and play a complete game.
Go for it. DeAndre, great watching you play, man, and really appreciate the time. Happy holidays. Stay healthy. That's most important, all right?
Most definitely. Happy holidays to y'all as well. Thank y'all again for having me.
Okay, DeAndre Swift, I could see Chris's heart is just palpitating right now listening to that. The excitement is killing us.
Well, you know what? I think what came clear through the mumbling occasionally is that you can sense the enthusiasm. They're certainly not going through the motions. There was a Lions assistant coach quoted this morning. Basically, he was asked, about how well they're doing, and his response was basically, "What are you talking about? We haven't done anything. We haven't done anything to deserve chirping or resting on our laurels. We got a lot of work to be done," and that's exactly what you want to hear from the coaches. You want to hear that tone of voice that we heard from Swift, and I heard Campbell on a few interviews this week, and it's the same way. It's all about business.
Well, it should be. I mean, look, they've won 5 out of 6 after that awful 1-6 start. So it's really impressive, but it means absolutely nothing if they're going to end up around 500 and miss the playoffs and the same old crap. Yeah, they're building for the future, but you know how that goes in Detroit.
I mean, it's positive. It's going to be positive. Their goal would be to finish with a winning record. If they don't get to that, 8 wins is a significant improvement over last year, and it doesn't affect their draft status in one sense because one of their draft picks is from the Rams, so they're going to get a top 5 to 7 pick anyway, plus their own pick. If they miss the playoffs, that pick is going to be in the 17 to 20 range. 2 picks to continue to build this team. The draft is far off. There's a lot of ways we could go there, but I like last year's draft, and I like the directions that they went. Rodriguez, I had mentioned, is one of my favorite players that I covered last year in the draft because he has the body type and the speed and everything to not even sniff the NFL, and yet he's always around the ball. You can't get him off the field. Every team has one of these types of guys, and finally the Lions have one of these guys.
Yep. And the Jets have a pretty good receiving core, and we're speaking next to their 3rd leading receiver, second-year guy out of Georgia, Elijah Moore. Hit it, Chris.
We aired your big game on Sunday in Buffalo, right? And how would you say the main reasons your offense never really got it going against the Bills?
Oh, man, for so many reasons, man. It takes 11 people, so can't just blame it on one.
Yeah.
This is a team sport. We all got to clean up a lot of things. So I blame all of us.
Hey, we had Mike White on our last pregame show last week, and of course, he's all excited about being the guy behind center for you guys. So,
yes, sir.
But he took some hard shots in that game. How is he doing this week?
Nah, man, he's doing good. He's a tough kid, man. And it definitely showed in the last game for sure. Getting up, coming back in again and again is definitely not easy. Especially after them type of hits. So, and like I said before, it's major respect to him.
Yeah, just watching on TV, I was hurting. Those were some shots.
Yeah, trust. I already know it. I wouldn't want to be him in the moments neither.
Hey, and by the way, every quarterback has their different type of a touch. How would you describe the difference catching passes from White and Zach Wilson? And is Mike's quick release helping your game that much?
I won't really say there's a difference. it doesn't really matter what really quarterback is in there. You know, last year I played with four different quarterbacks. Growing up, I played with many different quarterbacks, so I just focus on myself. But they both have touch, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like that definitely shows.
By the way, how's the room handling the change of quarterbacks now that Zach's coming back as the backup?
Oh, man, you know, handling it well. We don't know who is going to be the quarterback this week, but, you know, everybody's adjusting to what we got to adjust to.
You just do what you got to do, right?
Exactly, that's it.
We are with Jets wide receiver Elijah Moore, and you're just off new season highs, 10 targets, 6 catches. You played 82% of the offensive snaps in Buffalo. And Coach Sala is just – he's saying how much fun you're having. How would you describe the difference in what's going on right now and learning from your experience in just your second season?
Oh, man, I'm definitely blessed, man. I'm grateful for everything. You know, I wouldn't change a thing. You know, all this is definitely eye-opening, not even just football, man, for life, man. You know, you get to share your experiences throughout the locker room, man, throughout the league, and that's really what I want to do. So, you know, I'm just blessed, man. I feel good, and we just want to get this winning going.
That's awesome. You're obviously evolving as a young guy, and part of that is football and just life on the sidelines as well, right?
Yeah, man, life off the field as well, too.
I got you. So how would you describe how Coach Sala is helping change the culture with your franchise over there?
Oh, man, he's doing a great job, man. You know, pat on the back to him. You know, and definitely how he handles everything, man. He's definitely very professional, you know, and definitely shows. So, you know, we're grateful for him.
Players coach?
Oh, 100%.
That's great. Couple more things real quick here. What are you seeing on film that are your biggest challenges against that Lions defense?
Challenge is us versus us. We don't really worry about what they got going on. You know, we always, every team, you got to eliminate, you know, your self-inflicted wounds first. So focus on yourself, do what we got to do. The game's going to take care of itself.
Okay, last thing. How good can the Jets be down the stretch here? You got the last 2 games are on the road. I know you're not there yet, but you guys have lost 3 straight on the road. You got to turn that around for this stretch run.
I know it's going to happen, man. Y'all just tune in, man. Give us that energy, and we're going to be good.
Love your confidence, Elijah. And, hey, man, I appreciate the time. All the best to you. Stay healthy and happy holidays, all right?
Yes, sir. Happy holidays. Love.
Love coming from Elijah Moore. It's a confident group. Something I remember the last time I think last time I said that about the Jets, Joe Namath was their quarterback. But look, you got to love where they're coming. They're sort of like Detroit, although they're ahead of the curve in that respect, but they are really moving in the right direction.
Both teams had really great drafts. The Jets really killed the draft, and that's really helping them because you could see Sauce Gardner in the back of the secondary there doing everything. And then you have Wilson leading the way at wide receiver. You had Breece Hall until he got hurt.
Yep.
You have one of the pass rushers as one of their 3 first-round picks from last year. So these teams, these organizations are building the right, no matter what happens the rest of the year, they're building the right way. My final thoughts on this game, and this is kind of out of the blue in a way, but do you remember when the Lions started their winning streak and they beat the Giants and they beat them by double digits? You know where they beat them? Same stadium, same locker room.
That's
true. These guys are creatures of habit. They're superstitious. They had good vibes when they went into New York the other time. I think because they believe in themselves and they had that good experience against the New York Giants, that the Lions are fully capable of doing the same thing here. And the weather seems to be decent for Goff. It's going to be cold, but not that windy. And I do not expect there to be rain. I checked real quick because Goff has had some problems outdoors. Ted and I spoke about that briefly.
35 degrees, 10-mile-an-hour winds. I can. So you don't have a pick on this game, right, Ron?
No, I will most likely have the Jets but I don't know where the line stands now after the Mike White news.
Yeah, that's true.
They're getting about 1.5 points at the moment.
Yeah.
They're giving, not getting, right? The Jets
are getting 1.5 points.
They're getting 1.5.
Yeah. So
so the line flipped. The line completely flipped.
Minus 1.5 to plus 1.5. Then, right?
No, I won't have
up to 2. So
Wow.
I have a hard time believing the Lions can get enough separation to beat out a teaser. That ain't, a teaser's looking pretty nice with the Jets there.
Is Mike White worth 3 points?
That's a bad move.
That's
in
not
my
the
opinion.
same 3 points there.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I would not touch the Lions as a favorite in this role. 24 hours ago, I would have had a play on the Lions at +1.5 or whatever the line was yesterday. I wouldn't recommend it as a favorite. The Lions historically as a road favorite, not very good.
Yep.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. My metrics come out for the first time ever in 8 years. I run parallel systems. They came out with the exact same number, 0.70 Jets. So I'm going to be sitting on the sidelines here. I might actually even get the courage to do a Jets teaser leg because but I'm telling you something, there is something we're supposed to go in and lose this week. Okay. The bubble's supposed to be burst.
Who's we?
And it's feeling different. It is feeling
Are you
different.
talking about us three? Us three or we? Or
The
who's
Lions.
we?
And
Lions. Okay. I didn't know they were we.
if they win, the Jets are the third best defense according to my rankings. If they go in and they win this game handily, how good are they really? I mean, in all seriousness, if they can go to the Jets and really take care of business in the cold weather, I don't care who's the quarterback. That's an accomplishment. And boy, if they make the playoffs, watch out.
Well, I think I agree to a point, but I'm not going that far. First of all, the Jets aren't that good, okay? They're improved. They're better, and they're better than the Giants, especially now.
Yeah.
But I can't get overly excited about a win over the Jets with Zach Wilson coming back. We don't know what the hell's going to happen with him. If Quinnen Williams is out, the pass rush is nothing against Goff. So they'll take the win. Let's get back to 500 and then deal with it from there. Super Bowl favorites, I'm not there.
Oh no, I wasn't saying that.
I know.
But it's going to be a hell of an accomplishment, and I agree with you. The Jets. So I think the Jets are disrespected, underappreciated, and that defense is. And then I focused on that. If they're able to succeed against that defense on the road in that weather, you got to watch out. You've got to take this team seriously. They just aren't a flash in the pan.
Right. And the other thing was, we mentioned him briefly before too. We don't know if Corey Davis is going to be available. Those are two key guys, Williams and Davis. If they're not playing, that does not help their cause at all.
I should mention that the odds breaker said love more this week in fantasy. Look at his props. The props haven't come out for this particular game, and I have to recalibrate anyway. But Ted has a habit of talking to guests that do well on Sunday. So you should always look at the overs when Ted has a specific guest on.
It's called Sports USA Karma. That's what we call it. When they're my guests, they tend to do well. Don't tell that to Mike White last week, by the way, but that's another story.
Tampa Bay, Cincinnati. That's a really important game for Ron and I. We'll get into that, but Ted, what's your insight on this one? What have you learned in your prep for the show?
Well, you know what? I just love everything that Joe Burrow does for the most part. Okay, he's just a winner, and that's what I love about the guy. Besides being accurate and smart and doesn't make a lot of mistakes, except for he might throw an occasional stupid pass here and there, but it's worth it with the rest of his passes throughout the day. My issue with this game is all about health. What is going on with Burrow's receivers? Higgins, Boyd, Hendrickson. I have no idea if those guys are playing, and if they are, what kind of condition they're in. Tampa Bay's O-line still stinks. With Wirfs out, it really hurts their situation. I think they're supposed to get Winfield and Mike Edwards back on the DB side of things, so that helps them. But I don't like where Tampa is emotionally. I don't know what's going on. And look, the fact that Cincinnati's over, at least they were, you guys will tell us in a moment, over a field goal favorite on the road, that doesn't excite me at all from a betting standpoint. But you got to love almost everything the Bengals are doing because they simply find a way to win. And Tom Brady is not having the time to do what he wants to out there. He's starting to look a little older. He's not done, but he's not a kid anymore. We never know what we're going to say when he's going to fall off a cliff. It may never happen, but it's not the same thing going on in Tampa, Ron.
Ron, what do you think about the fact that we've got a lame duck quarterback with Tampa Bay at this point? How do you think Brady comes out at this point? He's certainly gone. The news is leaked out. He's not going to be with Tampa next year. We talked about that, I think, last week. What do you how do you expect him to perform this week, and what his attitude is going to be? Do you think this guy's got the get up and go that he needs to have to compete with a team of this talent?
I do. I expect them to compete because it's really about finding ways to get self-motivated. So you get self-motivated in divisional games. Sometimes you get self-motivated in home games. You should get self-motivated when you're going against Joe Burrow and they're saying that Joe Burrow is now past Tom Brady, and Tom Brady wants to say, hey, wait a second. I still have it. I still can lead our team to victory. I could do all these different things. But what people are starting to realize that some of us realized before the season started, this isn't the same Tampa Bay team. You could see it in the metrics because they all of a sudden they do not defend the run very well. Ndamukong Suh left. They had an injury there as well. They do not defend the run as well. They don't protect Brady as well because they lost 2 or 3 offensive linemen. And obviously they don't score in the red zone anymore because Rob Gronkowski is making millions on commercials and he has no interest in playing football right now. And how many times have I said Rob Gronkowski is just a big loss? So now they're a mediocre team in a mediocre division, still the favorite to win their division, but not the favorite to win this game. And the numbers say they shouldn't be favored to win this game.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, though, guys, on some people are pointing the fingers at the coaching staff of Tampa Bay right now, too, especially from an offensive standpoint, that they're not being quite as open as they were before, maybe a little bit too conservative. I keep looking at their receivers. They're in and out of the lineup all the time. You never know which guy's going to be healthy as well. I mean, that's really hurt them big time, too.
I'm going to fault the wording in that question because it should have been phrased. Some people are not pointing their fingers at the coaching staff to be
not the people I'm hearing.
Because I think everybody can agree it's been a poorly coached team this entire year. Very predictable. The running game is predictable, and even in-game strategy, as we pointed out on previous episodes, has been egregious. So very worrisome there.
And end of the hopes I'm just wondering, end of the hopes for Byron Leftwich's head coaching career, because when you're high up and you're winning the Super Bowl, it's like, hey, this guy's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Now he is sliced bread.
Yeah.
Ted, you gave us a layup question without knowing it, but on Tuesday I phrased the question to Chris. A lot of defensive coordinators being hired as offensive coordinators or head of everything in a pass-happy league. We saw the dramatic downfall in New Orleans from Sean Payton, to a guy who's been there for 7-8 years, even longer than the Tampa guy. But in this league, I think you need offensive innovation to run the entire show. And we're seeing it in Tampa and we're seeing it in New Orleans. And that's why I posed the question. Maybe we should be hiring more offensive head coaches and let the defensive guys do what they do best, cover one part of the room.
We talked a lot about this before the season, a couple of the early podcasts about the new coaches coming in. Most of them are offensive guys. We questioned the defensive guys if they even fit at all. And now over the long haul, we're getting a little better read on all of that. Look, it's way too obvious. This game is totally built on offense. Now it's the way the league wants it. They don't change the rules. It's not a coincidence. That's the way it's going to be for the rest of our lives, whatever that is. And I think we gotta look at some of these defensive. They better be special and have some quality, and I mean high caliber offensive coordinators if they're not calling the plays. And Bill Belichick, that includes you, buddy.
Absolutely.
The league has shifted. Back in the day, it used to be a great defense was going to stop a great offense, and unfortunately, the NFL rules have changed. And we saw it last night. The absurd roughing the passer penalty that kept San Francisco pick six out of the equation. And we're seeing that more often. Nowadays, an offense can overcome against even the best of defenses.
Bertie made a point, and I want to talk about that. He says on there, ironic because unders have ruled the year, and there's a couple of different reasons there. The defenses are going to bend but not break. Pass percentages are up in the league, so they're making you go down the field longer. And based on television, I hate to say this, but guys that fall out of bounds, you see the referee still going like this because they're encouraging the clock movement. And when penalties are called, offensive, not offensive holding necessarily, but offsides either way, the clock still runs after that. It's only pass interference and those others. So they're finding ways to shorten the game. The number of plays that are called in a game, except for when you have these hurry up teams, is actually down. And that's one of the reasons why the unders are a little bit down. But when referees swallow their whistle a little bit when it comes to the playoffs, you might see a spike in totals. Just a warning there.
So you have no play in this game either, Ron?
I have no play on this game. I will study it more once I get more injury reports. I hate that word that you have to study injury reports, but it's a mash unit every week. But I do not anticipate. No, I would lean Tampa, but I better have justifiable reasons to pull the trigger on Tampa.
I'm going to side with you there. I'm going to lean Tampa Bay for whatever reason. My metrics have this at exactly the spread. And my metrics usually are a little bit off. Dead nuts right exactly where it sits on both of my systems. I alluded to it earlier. We need Cincinnati to lose because we've got those Baltimore Ravens futures, and Baltimore's an underdog this week. So, segueing out of there, do you think Baltimore has a chance to hit the upset button this week?
I personally like Cleveland for reasons we discussed on the Tuesday show. I thought Watson got more in rhythm in the second half. I realize Huntley is going to go for Baltimore, but his pass skills are more of the short pass variety. I have him completing a high percentage of passes, but not necessarily for a high percentage of yards, especially given the Ravens don't scare anybody at wide receiver. So it's really going to come down to Cleveland mistakes. Can Baltimore win? Sure, they could possibly win, but I think Cleveland's in a really good situation with Watson's first home game, with the fact that the Ravens, I don't think they really trust their quarterback, and if they overtrust them, there's going to be turnovers.
Yeah, I got a question, you guys. One last thing on the Tampa game. Nobody mentions Tom Brady as a home underdog. I mean, first of all, how many times has that ever happened? And what were the results? Any idea?
Yeah, he won.
One time.
I would split the sample size, though. I would say, here's his stats with New England and Bill Belichick, and here's his stats without New England and Bill Belichick. So I don't really carry that much weight in.
But even with Tampa, has he been a home underdog more than once?
Well, that first year, definitely not, because we're talking about a team that was built. Everybody came there as free agents. They built the team to win the Super Bowl, and they did.
Interesting.
Basically answering this question on the screen regarding my numbers being right on the number and factoring in the receivers missing and such. That's exactly why I kind of favor Tampa Bay, but it's not going to be enough to make me pull the trigger on a bet, so to speak. I'm not looking to bet extra games. I'm looking to concentrate on how to bet the games that I want to bet as efficiently as possible. And we gave away that free play on Tuesday, and that worked out real well. We've got some great numbers going into the weekend on the parlays that we used. And that's the type of stuff I'm trying to do is trying to figure out how to bet the games I like a little bit differently and more efficiently.
Yeah, I'm really curious what you guys think about the Tennessee Chargers game. That's a huge game for both teams. Tennessee's just fallen off a cliff right now. They've lost 3 in a row. The Chargers, I mean, you never know what team's going to show up week to or play to play. Forget week to week. I love the fact, though, that Mike Williams against the short corners of that team. I would throw that guy 15 passes and throw it high. Good luck, guys. Nobody could get near that. I would totally just jump ball, baby, often throughout the game. And Tennessee's lack of pass rush right now, this is not going to help their situation against Justin Herbert.
Actually, I showed Tennessee with 33 defensive sacks, so they're in the upper echelon.
In the last 5 games?
I'd have to look back in the last 5 games. Take it away, Chris. I'll look back.
Please.
It's going to be an interesting scenario because Tennessee should be able to just run up and down the field on them. The Chargers don't defend the run well. And the inverse is the Chargers want to be able to throw. Yeah. And the Tennessee can't defend the pass well. So as far as the total goes, that's kind of confusing because if Tennessee's chewing up a lot of clock, but the Chargers are running up and down the field, where is that going to settle? So, as Ron mentioned, there's a lot of swinging arms by the referees, running clock. So, I don't know about the total. Totals aren't my bag, quite frankly. Do you have any read on what you think the pace will be in this game, Ron?
I think the Chargers would like to pick up the pace, but Tennessee plays that bend but not break defense. Their defensive numbers don't look good, but then you see that they allow 22 points per game because they're one of those teams that make you drive the entire field. I wouldn't be excited about betting an over in this game, even with Herbert and the high-powered offense. To answer your question, Ted, 4 sacks total for Tennessee in the last 4 games. If you go last 5 games, they have 10 because they had 6, and then they have just 4 in the last 4.
Okay. Nothing exciting there. A number that scares me about Tennessee, and it may show exactly who they are 1-5 against teams over 500. That ain't good.
Yeah, that's the problem with a run-based offense going through Derrick Henry is that running backs don't move the win needle. And when you play tougher opponents, it gets a little bit harder. So it's a chess match between whether or not Henry can just wear down the Chargers versus whether the Chargers can march up and down the field and turn field goal attempts into touchdowns. And what will be their red zone play calling? This could be a strategic matchup between coaches as well when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
I don't mean it in an insulting way, but the Chargers should be nicknamed the cockroaches because you just can't kill them. I mean, every single time I look at the standings, I'm just surprised that they're there. And, some way, somehow, they may just very well just sneak in and might be able to accomplish some stuff the healthier they get.
And I think Joey Bosa is coming back shortly, and that would help their situation, obviously. His brother is now the better Bosa. He's unbelievable this year. Got 15 and a half sacks as of last night. And he's one of the defensive players of the year. So you got to love what potentially the return of Joey would be, but I don't trust them. I just don't trust them on a weekly basis.
This big game for the Chargers. If they win this, I think they find a way to get in the playoffs. But this would be a damaging loss because there might be too much ground to overcome otherwise.
Oh, I love the what ifs. These are great.
Let's take a quick look at the what ifs. But I do want to point something out because it's very topical. Seattle's going to make this chart in the win column after last night. And when you really look at that result, boy, it was really not that kind of a game. The guy ended the game on the 1-yard line. The refs helped him out a lot. So you got to take these kind of charts with a grain of salt. But boy, wouldn't you just love to see the playoffs with these standings, especially with the Lions in that 2-hole.
How about just the Raiders situation? And they find every which way to lose. It doesn't even matter. I was at the game last week with Baker Mayfield, and I still can't believe the Rams won that game. And you just think the Raiders had slim playoff hopes on the line, and they just pissed it away. Just absolutely threw it in the toilet. It was awful.
Now, I want to say something about one-score records. I actually don't like this metric for teams that lost by 8.
I don't either.
I don't consider that a one-score thing. I'd rather see two different things: teams that were 6 or less and teams that were 7 or less. I don't want to put 8 in there.
I agree.
I agree 100% with you there, Ron.
Yeah, who's got the most there? Is that the Bears at +5? Is that? Could we actually think the Bears at 8 and 5? Come on, I mean, whatever.
Yeah, we're stretching things there.
It's fun to look at, but let's get back to the real world.
I'm going to share
my
trailing 5 weeks. People seem to like that.
Yeah, I do.
If I can find it.
And by the way, how about Dallas to Jacksonville this week? And all of a sudden, Trevor Lawrence looks like a real guy, coming off maybe the best game of his life this past week. And Dallas's defense has got some issues. They got injuries in the defensive backfield. And I don't know. I'm just saying this thing is not a cinch for the Cowboys this week.
I'm kind of leaning the Cowboys in that game. My metrics are pretty close to a Dallas Cowboy play.
And a sandwich game a bit too as well, don't you think, Ron? Will they have the?
I think at this point of the year they're not thinking of it that way. If Jacksonville was 2-11, I might think that way. But because Jacksonville stepped up their game, I think Dallas will take this seriously, especially after Dallas had a bad time against Houston last week. Oh, I think that's the bigger point. Because they had a bad time there, they're not going to take this one for granted.
Yeah, but the question is, why did they have such a bad time? I mean, that's the kind of thing. You got to come out of a funk against that team eventually. And they were awful the whole game and really lucky to win.
Long season, I think you have to have a couple bumps in the road. There's too many games.
That's not a bump. That's running into a brick wall with your head without wearing a helmet on purpose. That's not a bump.
Well, if Lovie Smith wasn't the coach of Houston, we might be sitting and looking at a 6-7 team, because they have some things that they've done well throughout the year. But at some point in every game, he finds a way. And I thank him, because I didn't even realize I had a ticket at 5.5, which I had no idea I had.
Wow.
I must have bet that in April. And they've already given me, I said, how come I have this ticket that says you won it? It's already put in my account. I had Houston under 5.5. Wow. But I must have bet the max, because they wouldn't have allowed me to bet anymore.
I hope the max was 2.5 billion.
Yeah. I don't think so. Those were those starter lines where a lot of times you're talking about double-digit max.
What did it end up like at 4?
Some places were 3.5.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Most of them were still 4.5. I was done after 5. I did as much as I could on 5.
Did the cops come after you on that stealing that one? That's not fair.
I mean, hey, they tied the first game. They were looking like a playoff team.
That's as good as they're ever going to get as a tie.
You make me realize that you talk about how bad Houston is. Houston's been displaced from my number 32 ranking, by the way, which I'll get to shortly. But just looking back on this trailing last 5, it doesn't look like it bodes well for us on Tampa Bay versus Cincinnati. Tampa Bay's sitting there at the very bottom of effort and performance over the last 5 weeks. Other good teams that you see down there, or perceived good teams, Tennessee, Giants, Jacksonville, Miami, New Orleans, Buffalo, Cincinnati's not too far away, I guess. A lot of good teams fading fast.
Yeah, it's true. Well, that's why we play it in December, boys. I love this time of the year. The real cream comes to the top.
Okay. We're going to call this the Ridicule Chris section. Hold on.
It's like a deli. You got to take a number, right?
I tweeted out 2 tweets this morning, and Ron, I know you haven't seen either of them.
I haven't seen anything, no.
My number 32 team, the New York Giants. What are your thoughts?
What?
No. Yep.
Well, we had them much lower than people all the way through. They haven't sunk that low for me. I have two teams just slightly below them, and I have two teams way below them. So I have them, what would that be, 28th?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're only 4 away, but I have them rated number 31 in defense, number 26 in offense. They're 29th in the trailing 5 weeks. And that combination, statistically, we know they're not the worst team in the NFL, but statistically, they're playing as the worst team in the NFL for the entire season.
Here's my question for Ron from a draft standpoint. Is Danny Dimes, as I call him, Danny Pesos, is he out of there for sure? And do they just bring in somebody, or do they franchise him for one more year? Or who knows?
The gates are still open, as they say on the high holidays. They're still evaluating him. I think all 4 of these games are still important to his future. I think they need to see, as long as they're in the playoff hunt, can he deliver during the playoffs? Can he deliver in a must-win game? Personally, I wouldn't keep him, but that's not the point. The point is, what are they going to do with him? And I think he's still under evaluation. I think the book hasn't closed.
Guess what? They're all must-win games for them now. And so, what's he got to do? Go 4-0? Probably not. Look, it's not just his fault. They have a lack of playmakers on that roster. They've
overachieved
big time. And that's why I will say, even to this point, they are not a good team now. But Brian Daboll has still done a great job. They're in pretty much every game. They don't have anybody who can take over games at all.
Yeah. I mean, look at the Jets, the Jets, the Giants, the Lions. These are promising franchises because they all had good drafts last year. 2 of the 3 have a lot of picks next year, and they like the coaching staffs. So the things, it's the way you build. It's the anti-Ram, anti-New Orleans Saints building blocks.
Yeah.
Miami. 3 weeks ago, I said there's a team everybody has in their top 10 that I have in the 20s. That team is Miami. And since that time, they barely covered against the Houston Texans. I was alerted that I'm unreliable and people should unfollow me for making a comment that they shouldn't have covered. But Houston pissed that cover away. They went for 2 needlessly. They had 2 idiotic turnovers in a row, one in the red zone and then one with 2 minutes and change left. They were like 1st and 10, and the guy threw a pop-up interception. It was one of the silliest interceptions I've ever seen. They were very fortunate to cover that game, and then they have not covered the 2 previous games. And Ron, how many games, quick, this powerhouse offense, the Miami Dolphins, how many times have they scored 20 points or more?
7.
Ted?
6.
4. Only 4
Really?
times. And 3 out of those 4 times were against NFC North teams. So those don't even count. So I have them rated 28th in defense. I have them rated in 17th in offense. They've only scored 20 points 4 times. The perception is much different than the reality. I don't think that they're technically the 20th best team, but metrically they're playing far worse than people realize.
Well, I think we talked about it last week. The previous, I think it was 4 to 5 weeks that the teams they played, that's was not an elite group, and it's going to eventually come back to bite you in the long run when you just add up all the wins. Look, they've dropped 2 in a row. They figure to lose this week at Buffalo. You think of a Miami team in the snow and the cold. I think it's supposed to be the coldest game of the year on Saturday night in Buffalo. So good luck with that. But it's still Tua to Tyreek, baby. Doesn't that matter? No, it doesn't always matter.
Well, 2 thoughts about Miami. Number one, the worry I had coming into the season was Brian Flores and his defensive acumen would be missed. And clearly, based on Chris's ratings and based on my metrics, it's missed big time because the defense has definitely regressed with much the same roster, I might add. This wasn't a case where they lost players. Same roster, different defensive coaching staff. That was a worry. And this week is just a little bit unfair for Miami because it's their third road game in a row. They're going from West Coast to East Coast and all that other stuff. That, if they pull this off, that would say something about Buffalo more than anything else. There was a comment about Atlanta, New Orleans. That's always been a fun series. The variable in the room is now a new quarterback for Atlanta. So that will be interesting. And, New Orleans has had a week and a half to stew over losing that 16-3 lead that they never should have lost. And if they had that, they would have been tied for the lead in that division. In a series typical of this, I hate to say it, it's also typical of the Giants, Washington, Atlanta, New Orleans. My first look is always the dog because that's just the way it goes with these series, especially Atlanta, New Orleans.
I think you and I, Ron, we've been talking about this literally for decades and decades. It doesn't even, you don't even care who they are. Now, if it's more than a field goal, you just take it and whatever. And you're probably not going to watch the game either, but you just take it and say, thanks for the win.
Yeah, and it happens continuously in the Atlanta New Orleans series, as it did first game of the year this year.
Yep.
I wanted to just reference quickly, we've had a lot of people making comments on the YouTube channel, and
any nice ones?
Yeah, they're almost all nice, actually. And we just greatly appreciate those comments, and I get to them every once in a while. I just can't tell you how difficult it is to find time to do that, but I just want to acknowledge that it's greatly appreciated that people take the time to post those comments. And we do look at them at some point. It may not necessarily be timely, unfortunately.
Now, I appreciate all the comments. I do try to get there and answer them. The more the merrier. We'll try our best.
Bookmaking, the lost art. Last night, I don't know whether you're aware of this, Ron, Circa put up a -3 on the Minnesota Vikings. The entire rest of the market is 4.5, and Circa's out there with a 3 -15. And it wasn't an error. I thought it was an error. I opened up the app. Well, it's there. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Is my internet broken? Where's it? Everybody else is at 4.5. You just don't see that anymore because most bookmakers are just copying other bookmakers, and they aren't really bookmakers. They're bet takers. And Circa is showing what a difference they are. And if you notice on Sundays and probably even Saturdays, they're, with the football, they are taking huge stands. They're moving. 1 week they moved 3 games all at once, 1.5, 2 points. Pay attention to this. Look at your odds screen. They mean business, and they're taking big bets. I mean, I bet the game last night, and I bet it twice for a significant amount of money, and they still didn't move it. I went to sleep, and the line was still there when people bet it all night long. So I do have it on good authority that it was a leveling action sort of situation. It wasn't because you got to be nervous. My reaction is, well, what don't I know? I'm not going to dive in blindly and bet something like that. I'm like panicking. I'm like looking at the NFL beat writers. I'm like, okay, what did they announce on this game? Is Cousins out? And I'm just looking everywhere. You can't just dive in and bet, blindly when you have a sharp book like that doing that. So it's sort of like sensory overload when you see a bookmaker or a bet taker actually start bookmaking. So just wanted to bring that to people's attention, what the difference is, and to look for those big moves on Sundays and take them seriously. But I think that they're primarily because they've got some whales that are betting these games in particular. So you can't necessarily get scared off of the games. But when you see those moves, Ron, what is your reaction? Does it scare you off, or you're like, oh, goody, that's the line I was looking for?
The first thing I do is hesitate, just like you, and saying, what am I missing? Because you go all this week, and then in the middle of the week or at the end of the week, you see something like that. it's such an information-driven thing. I don't want to be on the wrong side of something that happened. But the other thing is, and we touched upon this with what was his first name? I'm sorry, Metcalf of Circa when he was on. He'll intentionally move lines to drum up business. He talked about that with season wins. He talks about that with moving a stale college line, especially early in the year. Circa is not afraid to take a stance. So when a line moves, you need to know where the source is, first of all, and then kind of dig into it a little bit. By the way, I want my free toaster, Chris.
What do you get the toaster for?
Because as Steve and Russell have pointed out, Miami, and I double checked it too, Miami scored 20 or more points exactly 7 times.
Yeah, I'm looking this up,
Really?
and I couldn't believe it either.
So,
Oh, you know what I did?
Oh, yeah, you read it wrong. That's what you did.
Oh, that's what I did. You know what?
spreading false information. Where's my
They
toaster?
switched the teams left and right, and that's how I screwed that up.
Okay, my dog ate my homework too. Whatever.
You know what? I should be like the typical guy and tell everybody that they're wrong and I'm right. And screw you. No, I appreciate the correction because it does nobody any good to be wrong. So I appreciate the heads up there. I still have them 20 though, so nah.
Okay, and next week on Sports USA, we got the Bills at the Bears. That's interesting. Who knows how cold it's going to be in Chicago by then and windy. And good luck to both of those wintry teams. And the Commanders at the San Francisco 49ers. 3,000 miles to go up against Mr. Irrelevant. How's that?
Yeah.
Let me pull everything. Let me look through these, see if there's any questions that I bypassed through.
And a reminder, by the way, Sunday on Sports USA, my NFL Sunday warm-up show starts at 9:30 in the morning Pacific time. You can go to sportsusa.live and catch it there if it's not on your local radio station. But next week, we will be doing our doubleheader on Saturday because of Christmas Sunday. So remember that. And that'll be the Bills and Bears and the Commanders and Niners on Saturday. It's going to be really weird for me.
Ron, do you think the Vikings are a public play?
Not the way I mean, even taking Circa out of the equation, the line is pretty steady, 4.5. I personally had set the line at 5, where I thought the line would go in terms of, Indy. To me, Indy is not a public team. So what you're saying is, well, if Indy's not a public team, maybe Mini is, but I don't think Mini is either. So it's kind of flat to me.
Yeah, I'm showing, not that these bet percentages are really accurate most of the time, but it is showing a lot more bets on Minnesota. And obviously the line opened much higher and went down. The Sharps have moved this number down.
Really?
There's no doubt about that. But at this point, at the levels it is, I believe, I hopped all over Minnesota -3. I've got a very nice, favorable medal. I hope it lands on 3 or 4.
Nice.
But I also have Minnesota as a full bet -3. My numbers have that at much higher. And it's a buy low spot on Minnesota after their last 2 games being on national TV and looking like cow dung. And there's been a little bit of an overreaction here.
Yeah, 3 is too low. Like I said at 5. So you're talking about some key numbers that are there.
I wonder if people are looking ahead at all. I don't know what the schedule is next week, but I'm assuming it's Coach Saturday on a Saturday, and maybe they're a little looking at that. Who the hell knows?
I don't even have that schedule up except for your 2 games. I'm day to day with all the stuff that's going on right now. So
the Bills total. Do you have any opinion on that? I can bet it at under 45 at the moment. There's 44s, 44.5s, 45s. I've got some very good totals. People telling me that there is good value on the under, but gradually as the week has gone on, the wind speed has lowered the estimation. So the latest estimation is where is it?
Like 15?
10. It's down to 10 miles. So
Is it really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Not
that's
one-
going to affect it a little bit. Somebody tweeted at me that Tua has never played a college game or NFL game under, I thought it was like under 40 degrees or under 38 degrees or something silly.
I think Tua said that he played one game with Alabama in the snow, but maybe I got that wrong. I think.
I don't know whether this was right, but it's supposed to be 24 degrees. And, Miami had a lot of problems in the warm weather out west the last couple of weeks. So it's going to be interesting to see how they fare in the cold weather.
It's only fair because Buffalo, if you remember, Diggs had oxygen all throughout that first game, Miami, and the humidity. So now the other team needs some snow blowers. They can't play a normal game in 50 degrees.
No excuses, boys. No wind. I don't even want to hear about it.
I don't think. I think Atlanta probably does lean toward being a public play. What do you think, Ron?
Atlanta's the right side. Whether it's public or not, I don't know. I'll send my bill to Birdie if Atlanta doesn't cover. But I think in this kind of series, Atlanta's the right side. But the worry is the new quarterback, Desmond Ridder. I mean, when you bring in a new quarterback, it has different. Even if you think that he's the answer, the solution, it's still his first game. You don't know his tendencies. You don't know what he's thinking, inside of him. I know he played big games at the University of Cincinnati. We talked about this with Brock Purdy, who played a lot of big games at Iowa State. But this is his first game. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, but you know what? As we talked about before, if it's Desmond Ridder or the late John Ridder, I'm taking over 4 points in this game.
The Carolina game is going to be awfully interesting because it's off the board in a lot of places now. And I think what you're going to see happen here with that line is potentially Mason Rudolph's going to be announced the starting quarterback. And if that happens, you're going to see the line over 3. You're going to see the 3 strengthen, possibly 3.5. If he's not, then maybe you'll start to see a 2.5 pop back up there. But it's kind of in a holding pattern at this point.
Boy, what would you guys do if you were Coach Tomlin, who, by the way, one more loss, the first losing record of his 16-year career with the Steelers, which is really amazing stat. But, I mean, what would you do? Trubisky looked really bad last week, but he's not that bad. And you already know what Mason Rudolph is. So, I mean, who would you go with? Or just put up a picture of Big Ben and forget about it?
Mason Rudolph is a disaster. That's basically better than pulling out your linebacker to quarterback at this point. So if they have to go with him, it's going to really favor Carolina.
They don't have to go with him. I mean, Trubisky's not hurt, I don't think.
I'd go with Mason Rudolph so that it could justify my underplay on the game.
Yeah.
How's about that? I see the FCS. So Chris will find this interesting because I actually do simulate some of these games in bowl season. And I did simulate that particular game. Last year, I simulated a game where the underdog won by 22 points. And I said, well, that can't be right. And then they did it again and won by 22. And then in real life, they won by 22. So I'm hoping that's the case. The simulation likes Incarnate Word. And I have no idea how they came up with that name for a university to begin with. But the simulation likes them to cover 3.4 point game.
I had North Dakota State to win that entire championship, so I'm rooting for them. Birdie brings up the overreaction to fading quarterbacks, and I couldn't agree more. We've addressed it in the past. These guys don't get the jitters like people used to get. They're so experienced; they're used to it. It's just not the way it used to be. So that's no longer an issue. And usually these teams are able to practice and get all that work in, and it really helps them out. And they baby them. They put them in positions so that they can succeed if the coaching staff is any good.
Right.
Brock Purdy said this in his post-game conference yesterday. He said the 4 years that he stayed at Iowa State benefited him so much. And Ritter stayed 4 years at Cincinnati. So it's a big difference because some of these guys come out after their third year, but they've only started for one in college. Ritter had put up a lot of game action at Cincinnati, and Purdy, he had probably 50 games worth of starting action at Iowa State in a decent conference where you have to go against the TCUs, the Baylors, the Oklahomas, the Texas. So these guys with 4 years, as Mike Tomlin used to say, 4-year body of work. That's what he used to look for in draftees.
That's why they chose Pickett. That's exactly the reason.
Yeah.
And I mean, we talked about this dozens and dozens of times, how that experience of playing, and you're not going to get it at the pro level from week one. So you're basically in training camp until you become a starting quarterback, and it's not fair. Now, good luck for, again, Desmond Ritter. It's going to help us, but you never know, first game jitters, all that stuff. To me, the matchup of the week, and we didn't even talk about it, is Mahomes against Jeff Driscoll. Come on, guys. I mean, it doesn't get any. I'm the Jeff Driscoll vice president of his fan club.
Oh, good. Yeah, the president is no longer there, though.
No, he retired.
Have I been smoking too much crack, or
Yes.
why do I feel more confident with San Francisco now than I did before?
Is what I want to bring this up, because we talked about this several times, including with Warren Sharp in the summer, that Trey Lance, the opposite of Brock Purdy and the opposite of Desmond Ritter, Trey Lance hadn't played but one game in 2 years. And we said, and Warren said off air, he said, we're not going to go in. I asked him, I said, isn't the best time to take San Francisco after Trey Lance has played a few games? You're going to get a better price. They're not going to beat Chicago week one, which was good, and stuff like that. No, then Jimmy G goes right in, and that's another ticket that should have hit your win bucket already, because
Today,
San Francisco
yes.
just won. Yeah, San Francisco just won. We cashed that ticket. We bet it on air. So, I mean, these conversations really help. And Trey Lance wasn't. It's going to be the same thing next year. He'll have played 2 games in 3 years that are meaningful.
But does anybody care about Fields at this point? I mean, we know Garoppolo's going to be gone, but is Purdy going to actually keep Fields on the bench? They may have a good problem.
Trey Lance.
Keep Trey Lance on the bench.
Yeah.
Athleticism. Not via athleticism. They still have to feel that their investment, that the ceiling is higher for Lance, but that remains to be seen, because he's not a traditional passer, or he has a chance to be that, but we have no clue as to whether he's a traditional passer in the way that Brock Purdy was trained at Iowa State.
And I hate to overuse the term system, but it's really important with San Francisco and their quarterbacks. They put them in a position to not make a lot of mistakes, and that certainly helps with kids. And they've got 2 of them now that can handle that system very nicely. Although right now Purdy's shown he can handle it better than Lance, but it's way too early. The bottom line is, hey, you got 2. You don't have to worry about Jimmy G next year. You got a starter and a backup, whatever the order is, and that's a good
an
problem
excellent
to
point.
have.
Excellent point.
Yeah, really good problem to have. I guess we're going to wrap this up shortly, but I got to say something about the loss of Mike Leach this week.
Oh, that was bad.
Mike Leach, I got to know him a little bit when he was Washington State head coach through Pac-12 media days. And, he was the most off-the-wall, zany human being as a head coach you will ever meet, ever before, since, and ever in the future. There'll never be another Mike Leach. And we would text each other occasionally. We got to do a podcast together. I hardly even knew the guy, but he was just an outgoing, he grew up in Northern California. He lived in LA for a short time when he got a degree from Pepperdine. And he used to tell me the stories about, I lived in an awful neighborhood in the San Fernando Valley and had to drive through there. We had bars on our windows for a reason. And he would drive all the way through. He said, I couldn't wait to get to Pepperdine. I'm in beautiful Malibu. And you could just see Mike Leach beaming with those kinds of stories. It is a huge loss. I'm wondering your thoughts, guys. been hearing the talk this week. Is he a college Hall of Fame coach? Now, what he's done. There's a Mike Leach tree now, which means something. There's a 60% number. If you didn't win 60%, you're not eligible. He's like one win away from that. But he's been with starter teams all the way, and he's developed programs from scratch. So what do you think?
Let me comment on that first, just because I'm not a diehard like Ron, and I know he's got a lot to say on it. As somebody that's not, I think most Hall of Fames are nonsense, and they put a lot of people that don't belong in there. But just as somebody that's not passionate and too close to it, looking at it from afar, of course he belongs, because he changed the game. He changed the way offense is operated. And as you mentioned, he's got a great coaching tree. He was a class act. Everybody loved the guy. And from me, looking from the outside in, yeah, absolutely.
We touched upon this on Tuesday. I brought up the topic. I asked Chris to bring up the topic so I could share a few words. And I did this on another show as well, so I won't repeat everything. But he changed the way that I handicap football, because it wasn't, whenever you faced a Mike Leach team, you had to throw out running numbers. You had to do different things. Really, Lavelle Edwards at BYU was the first where I had to completely shift as to how I handicap BYU. And it brought up some good nuggets there. But then Mike Leach's fingerprints were all over NFL or college offenses and forced some changes in terms of handicapping. Remember, he won at Lubbock, Texas, Pullman, Washington, Starksville, Mississippi. And I said this on Tuesday. I mean, he didn't get mainstream jobs, but he got to number 2 in the nation, I think, with Michael Crabtree and Texas Tech. And that stat I didn't know, 21 years of coaching, either 18 bowl games or 19 bowl games.
Really?
I can't remember
Wow.
which. So, yes, he belongs in the Hall of Fame, and I don't think it's a question.
Yeah, that's why I want to give him a due respect here. And I texted him a little before he passed away, just to say thanks and, hope that he would recover. But it was obviously pretty dire at the time. And it's an awful loss. It really is. I think he was 61. That's just too damn young.
Yeah, it causes us to reevaluate a lot of things. There were some decisions I've made with that in mind. But his stories are incredible. Every once in a while, I find myself reading the stories and not doing anything else the last few days.
Yep, absolutely.
Brett Rippon will be the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos. So that line is ticking down just a little bit. And I got the impulse to just comment on the market. I think that the fact that this Washington game not coming down to 4 and actually more 5s popping up, says a lot about how far, how much separates these two teams. I know you'll be on the Giants, Ron, but be careful.
You mean Mark Rippon is quarterbacking for
no, not
Washington?
Mark. No, they wish Mark was there. It's Brett Rippon.
So Heineke is not going?
No, that's
Russell
Denver.
Wilson's not going.
Oh, no. We're talking Denver. We're talking Denver.
You're getting mixed up with Mark Rippon. He's not with Washington anymore.
We changed topics when you nodded off.
Well, why are you talking about the Giants then? He's not playing the Giants.
Because I said I'm going to just take a quick look at the market.
Wake me up later.
If we're
talking about Denver, just tell me I don't have to watch their game.
Who the hell wants to talk about that game after you announce the quarterback change? There's nothing to talk about.
Is it okay, guys, if I just add that I would prefer Mark Rippon over Brett Rippon at this stage of their careers?
He probably still would play better. The Bengals have ticked up to 4 at Bookmaker, so I don't think we're going to see that line. We're got the 2.5s now in Denver. Instead of BSing with you guys, I should have been taking the +3. So lost opportunity there.
Yeah, blame it on us.
The things
I
we
have
do.
Nothing more to add except for when we see you guys next time, happy holidays.
Same here.
That sounds good. Thanks for joining. Subscribe, tell your friends and family. What's this last comment we have? All right, I'll pop it up there quickly. We appreciate everybody joining. And as you can see, as this flows, come back next week and send us some questions. It's more fun to put it on the off the fly. So This is where we're going to sell you absolutely nothing and just let you go. Thanks again, everybody.
Except for my book for Christmas, of course, right?
No, we're not even selling your book this week. Next
week.
Week.
That is brutal.
Oh,
all right, I quit.
Jesus.
There it is. Christmas time, baby.
There it is.
On Amazon. Thank you. Happy holidays.
Cheers.